Avengers Infinity War is the 2018 sequel to the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. It is the 19th installment of the MCU. It was produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Motion Pictures. It was directed by the Russo brothers. Now, as we continue on our way to Avengers Endgame, the time has come to review this film. This particular movie was highly anticipated because it's the beginning of the end of one of the greatest sagas in cinematic history. Is it as good as the ones before it, or not so much? In the next couple of minutes, we are going to find out. The good. The cast is one of the largest assembly of superheroes we have ever seen. There are so many characters in this movie that at first you might feel afraid of that, but it is not bad at all. Every character that is here brings a level of gravitas to the story that is important. You have Captain America, Iron Man, you have Thor, you have Black Widow, you have Hulk, you have the Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. Every character brings so much weight into it, and it doesn't feel that one overpowers the other. They all have the same level of energy and of importance, and I definitely love that part of the film. Definitely, that's a great job by the Russo brothers of bringing every character together with all the different personalities and making it work. Thanos is the most terrifying villain in the MCU. He is powerful, he is menacing, he is calculated and plain ruthless. He showcases the signs of a tyrant, a narcissistic tyrant that only sees himself and his way of thinking as the only alternative, the only way above any other. He considers himself the savior of the entire universe. Some people may consider him relatable, but make no mistake, he is a genocidal maniac that only sees his way as the only way and only cares about fulfilling his ultimate goal, which is wiping out half of the population in the entire universe. Josh Brolin did a phenomenal job portraying the character. Yes, it's only CGI, but he injects that energy, he injects that voice, he injects that persona into the image that we see on screen and make it so scary that definitely he is phenomenal portraying the character. The movie takes inspiration from the Infinity Gauntlet, one of the most beloved and praised storylines in Marvel Comics, published back in 1991. Written by Jim Starlin and drawn by George Perez and Ron Lim. Definitely a classic story. The movie is not a direct adaptation of that story, but it takes a lot of visual and literary cues and inject it into the film. So for a lot of comic book fans, of course, they will see Easter eggs and references everywhere, and that's always good. You know, as a comic book fan, I love that. So that's the biggest, I would say one of the biggest suits in this film is the fan service. So definitely kudos for that. Although the movie is sober in comparison to previous films, probably the most sober of all, definitely it has some hilarious moments. Some moments, of course, that there's some comedy, and that cuts some of that tension that persists throughout the film. And I love them. You know, that's part of the Marvel, cinematic universe. You always have to have some comedy in it. Particularly in this film, with the Guardians of the Galaxy are involved. Those are the most hilarious moments. Some dumb jokes, but they're great jokes. They really kind of like make it better and very comfortable. I really like that interaction. With the Guardians of the Galaxy are involved, definitely there's a lot of comedy in it. There is no denying, this is the most visually striking film in the MCU. It's just plain beautiful. Particularly in fighting scenes in Wakanda and Titan. It's just amazing. You just in this expectation, looking at everything. It's just amazing, everything coming together. And also this feeling of helplessness when you see your heroes being overrun by hordes of alien creatures and being defeated by Thanos. It's just amazing to watch. It is just an experience in itself that is really hard to describe. The CGI was masterfully implemented in those moments, and I really love it. Also, the music score is phenomenal. Actually, it's more than phenomenal. It's amazing. It's awe-inspiring. The music score, the orchestral arrangement plays every scene so well. You are constantly reminded that you're watching an epic film. This is not your average superhero story. This is not your early, 90s or early 2000s films that, they were just popcorn films, no more, no less. Of course, this is a popcorn film, but this is more than a popcorn film. This is pretty much a great saga coming to a crescendo, and I just love it. They implemented the music so well. They have done that in other movies, but definitely here it plays with your emotions, and I really love that. The bad. Now it's time to talk about the bad, and there's a lot to consider here, and it took me a while to really process everything. I was actually a bit afraid to get to this part because there's so much to write, and it's all about perception. For me, a bad part of this film, first of all, is that feeling of hopelessness that it starts at the beginning and ends, pretty much at the finale of the film. It goes through all of it. It's like it runs through the entire movie and never let go. It's like you jump into this ride knowing that you're going into a hopeless end, and kind of like a soldier that goes to war, on D-Day, and you know that you're going to die. It feels the same way, that you feel that it's going to go on that route, and there's no way that you can skip the trip. So it feels like that. The entire movie feels like that, and it's something totally different from what the MCU has been known for. We have to remember the MCU has been built around hope. Each movie is all about hope. Its superhero tale is hope, and we all see these heroes going through challenges, but at the end they're going through hope. They're going through challenges that sometimes seem that they're not going to be able to conquer, but ultimately they do it because of hope. This movie scratches all of that. The narrative is different, and perhaps this is what they attempted to do. Of course, we have to remember this is just the part A of part B. There's a second act that we still gotta watch at Endgame, but definitely is that feeling that is could be a bit alien for those that have grown accustomed, like all of us, I would say, to this delivery, that the way that the movies have been delivered to us. It is new, and it is perhaps something bold, but not necessarily something that I felt personally comfortable with. And some fans will love it, and some fans will hate it. At the end of the day, it depends on your point of view. My biggest concern with this film is that it humanizes Thanos. Now, I'm not against relatable villains. I think a relatable villain makes a story more interesting, because then you see two powerful foes clashing, two ideas clashing with each other. But in this case, you have to be very careful, particularly with Thanos and his purposes, his goals, which is wiping out half of the population of the entire universe. Ultimately, he is a mass murderer. He is a homicidal maniac that only cares about himself, like most homicidal maniacs and tyrants do. So you have to be very, very careful, particularly with impressionable audiences, like in this case, children, because they're the ones that are more keen to not really see the difference between right or wrong. You might cheer on for Thanos, but cheering on for Thanos is not necessarily the right thing, because ultimately, like most tyrants and homicidal maniacs, most of them, they don't have, even though they're human and they have like us, they have feelings, they have emotions. Ultimately, their goals are not humane, they're not altruistic. So definitely you have to be very concerned. So for me, that's the biggest thing that I'm concerned about. It is definitely it can be confusing for some audiences. Due to the subject matter, the large cast, and the number of events, the film is not just a narrow, straight road. It is a bit uneven. There are highs and there are lows. This was kind of expected, because technically they're laying the groundwork. They're laying the foundation for what is to come, which is Avengers Endgame. So unfortunately, they have to do it. They have to inject as much information as you can in order to set the stage. And they're doing it here. And some people might like it, some people might not. I'm not saying that the movie is boring. It is not. It keeps you engaged from beginning to end. But you have to remember that it's going to keep you up, and then it's going to keep you down. You're going to go on a roller coaster a little bit with your emotions throughout the film. There are very slow moments, but also there are very fast-paced moments. So, ultimately the pacing suffers because of all of it. Although I don't have a problem with the CGI, I don't have a problem with CGI at all in most movies. I understand the necessity of it, and definitely there's a lot in the MCU. It's pretty much a necessity in the MCU, and in this film, of course, it is. And for the most part, like I said before, the movie is gorgeous, it's beautiful, and I love it. But there are times when you are going to notice that CGI. And it's not that you're going to notice it, slightly. It's going to be really there in your face, particularly in very crucial moments. And that takes you away from the experience because, it's particularly in some emotional moments that definitely your heart is pouring out, because of the scene. All of a sudden you see that CGI sticking out like a sore thumb in front of you. It's like, it takes you away from that experience. You're reminded you are watching a fabricated scene, and that's something that you don't want to see when you're watching a movie. That's something that you don't want to have in a movie. And definitely there are a few moments, very few, but they're visible and they're still flaws. In conclusion, first, I have to set the record straight. This is not, and I mean not, an Avengers film. This is a Thanos film. This is actually the first MCU film that it centers around a villain. And for some people, that's a bold move, and it's a refreshing thing to watch. For others, it might be a bit confusing, and they might feel alienated by it. I'm definitely in the middle of it. There are things that I really love. I love when a cinematic universe takes chances, and I know the studio took a big chance on this, but also I'm not the type of person that like to deviate so much. So the movie, it's bold in its construction. Definitely something totally different. A lot of people were saying that the MCU didn't have the capacity to really change the status quo, but this film really proves them wrong. It does. And the MCU has the capacity to construct stories based on different characters with different situations and mindsets, and definitely Thanos is one of them. It is a villain story first and foremost, and more than anything else. And it really plays here. It is different, and for that reason alone, I would say the studio deserves, credit for it. It really paid off in the end. Although I'm not totally crazy or happy with the whole ordeal, I still feel that the studio, took a risk, and the risk really paid off. Although every film in the Marvel Universe is considered family friendly for the most part, I wouldn't say the same thing for Infinity War. Yes, teenagers will be okay with this film. I think they will enjoy it and they'll love it. But small children, not so much. And they might even come out of this movie feeling confused and conflicted. Because, of course, they have grown, little children are growing, loving these characters because, of course, the marketing, the cartoons, the toys. So they're rooting for their heroes. And this movie doesn't give them that. It gives them defeat. And some people would say, well, kids need to learn about the life is hard. Yes, it is hard, but sometimes you want to always show your kids, of course, that there's hope at the end of every challenge. And sometimes things don't work that way, but we still can hold to hope. And this movie doesn't do that. It is a more mature movie overall. And I think mature audiences will understand it much better than younger audiences. And it's definitely a great movie in itself. But ultimately, after everything is said and done, this movie is just part A, and we still need to watch part B. So the movie, for everything that they did here, it never feels as a one single unit, as a standalone film. It is just the first act of a saga, a cinematic saga, that needs to be completed on the next movie. And to me, that's I would say, the Achilles heel of this film, and also the biggest flaw, the biggest weakness. And is something that is always going to be tied up to this film. This film cannot be watched without Avengers Endgame. And of course, we have to wait a year to watch the ending that is just happening this weekend. So definitely, I think once they put them together, then we will understand this film a lot better. But for the most part, it's just the first act. And and it's all it is. It comes to a crescendo. It's a villain film first and foremost, and we still need to see the ending of it. So if I have to give this movie a final score, I would say it is an 8 out of 10. Now, I can tell you one thing. I was conflicted about the 8. I was more going for a 7.5. But it's just so much value in it. They put so much in it. Visually, story-wise. So it's hard not to really give him I would say not a mediocre score, because for me, 7.5 is a very good film. But not necessarily, I would say that, that this movie is the worst of the worst, because it is not. It is, it's a saga that it still needs, the ending. It is what it is. I would say so. I really love it, and I'm really looking forward to Avengers Endgame. And after I watch Avengers Endgame, when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm going to watch these two movies back to back, because that's how you need to watch them, in my opinion. And I think that's how they are built to be watched, kind of like the Empire Strikes Back and The Last Jedi, kind of like the same way. It works the same way. So, but what is your opinion? I would like to hear it. Do you love Infinity War? Do you consider the best movie in the MCU? Do you consider the worst? I don't know. Share your opinion with me. I would like to hear it. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification button so you're reminded of the next video. Follow me on social media, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Please listen to the podcast. You can find it in iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, pretty much everywhere. And please consider supporting me financially. You can do that through Patreon on a monthly basis, or you can do it as a one-time through PayPal, and also through GoFundMe. All the links are down below. So once again, God bless you. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.
We can make a wildfire get away.